Postseason, we're looking at specifically our needs analysis. Our game was on the 28th, and then we have roughly about 25 days of off time, downtime. So we sent our players a packet based off of active recovery. And then when they come back on campus, and that's when we focus on where our athletes are coming off of a break. And a lot of things can be construed, and especially with the athlete and the coach, you think that your players can do what they did before they left, and vice versa. The players think that they can do what or perform at a higher level when they left, but if they, for whatever reason, been doing something or nothing, I mean, they had to have active recovery after a 6-month, 7-month season. We do our best to mitigate that, and we go over our needs analysis. So when we're out here doing any type of drill, it's up to us in the eye of the coach in the process of actually running the drill. Can we do this? Can we accelerate? Can we decelerate? Can we change direction as efficiently as we did 30 days ago? Or do we need to regress and make sure that our athletes are doing the drills properly, under the proper constraints, with the proper restrictions?
A lot of these guys are coming off vacation, you know what I'm saying? Like, season just ended. So we understand that we have to introduce these things back to them strategically, right? So we can get them back to where they need to be, right? Where we want to be. So that's just kind of how we look at it. And at the end of the season, we look at our needs analysis, look at how our practices went, look at how our games went, right? And before the spring comes about, right, we have a foundation of where we want to get these guys back to be.
When it comes to off-season, we have, especially coming back, like, we have an 8-hour window of what we can and can't do with these athletes per NCAA restrictions. And then we have specific weeks where we can't do anything at all mandatory. So it's up to the player to essentially hold themselves accountable and make sure that their return to play fitness is spot on. Now, we obviously help our athletes do that, but we are doing it within the rules of the institutions. And that plays a difficult part for us, because we know what we need to do, and we understand what has to be done. With the type of restrictions that we have to be very tactical in how we go about our day and how we prioritize and analyze our previous data, and then how do we interpret the data that we're getting once we get them back onto the field.
As we enter our winter workouts, we're coming off of the season, we're looking at our player load and our mechanical intensity. And typically we want to strategically plan and increase those things around 20%, right, as we enter that next phase. Those are the two big ones we're looking at. We still look at our AAL and distance, but as we plan for each next phase, we want to increase 20%, and we want to get the guys ready, right? Whether we're, as we start in winter workouts, right, we'll slowly transition into our identity sessions, and then from our identity sessions, we want to transition into ultimately spring ball. So with every jump and every increase, right, we want to get them ready for our practices.
So we use KINEXON data to help players who have possibly suffered any type of injury late in the season. As soon as they get reintegrated into our hands, and we actually get to move and do stuff on the field with the KINEXON bugs, we just look at a baseline. Obviously, what can they do? What are they not allowed to do? And how well are they in shape? And that's a huge piece of the puzzle, because they can do something physically, but if their cardiovascular fitness isn't, up to par, then we can only do so many things. So we have to use this type of data and the reports that we're given to strategically enhance the workout as the weeks go on. So we've had guys with sprained ankles, high ankle sprains, low ankle sprains, they can be reintegrated relatively fast. But then if we have anyone that has to go under the knife for either a scope or a repair, those types of injuries take a little longer. But at the same time, the KINEXON is our friend, so we can make sure we're on the razor's edge of doing exactly what needs to be done, not going over and not staying below, but right where we need to be, because too much, it looks just like not enough. And you know, the KINEXON data analysis that we get is top tier, and so we're not guessing. All right, everything is strategic, and we can get these guys back faster, and they're faster in their timetable, and when they get back on that timetable, they're faster, they're stronger, and they can withstand the forces of the game and have a better understanding of their body and what they need to do to make sure that either that injury doesn't happen again, and obviously you can't, if it's a collision injury, you can't mitigate that, especially in the game of football. But if it's a non-collision, non-contact injury, we are doing our best with the data that we get and with our athletic training. We're talking daily to make sure that we mitigate all these non-contact, non-collision injuries. And so it's been a blessing to have this type of data for us.
Communication between staff, whether it's coaches, whether it's us and coaches, whether it's us in athletic training, is very important, especially as we look back at our reports, right? We're able to use our player relative value. So if we want to reintegrate players back into practices, back into workouts, or if we just want our players to be ready for practice, right? We can look at those player relative values. Hey, here's where you were, or here's where we were as a team. And we understand, again, like Coach Neighbors mentioned, there's no guesswork. We understand here's where we were, here's where we need to be, right? And here's where we want to go ultimately. As a staff, from us to coaches, us to our athletic training, right? Pre-lift, during the lift, post-lift, pre-practice, during practice, post-practice, right? We're always in constant communication. Especially as we're looking at all our different reports, as we're looking at the live data, right? We're always in communication, so that way we all know at all times what is going on. Nobody's surprised. There is no guesswork. Again, like, we're looking at the information that we're given, and we're making decisions and plans based off of that.
For the layout for winter workouts this season, we went on a 4-day split: Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And when it comes to our needs analysis and what we're doing to get ready for every phase, all right, this is our foundation. So we have to make sure that we're pushing the players, but on a strategic level, and we don't want to fatigue them early. We want to keep them fresh, but we want to be fast and violent in our execution of our plan. So we work on accelerations, max velocities, and then our work capacity. And the biggest things that we're looking at is we want to try to stay above 20% of what our practice intensity would be like, even though when we practice, it's longer. Like, since we are in the constraints of the NCAA, we have 8 hours. So we've got 4 days to crank out 8 hours of work. So our mechanical intensity and our accumulated accelerated load per minute are the metrics that we look at to see how dense our sessions are, although our time limit is very constrained. And we've done that, and we look at trying to get 20% increases week after week, session after session, and then foundation to identity to spring practice.